Good afternoon, and welcome to BBC Two.
Hello and welcome to Back to the 80s, the podcast that travels back through time in a rose-tinted DeLorean. Yes, folks, it's that time of week again as I, Glenn, aka the Cymru Nerd Cave, basically fire up the nostalgia TARDIS and take a special guest on a journey back through time when action figures weren't as expensive as they are now because we had no major oil crisis and basically the world was a much simpler place, at least to us who were growing up. Joining me this week, he's not a special guest. He's the man who invented this podcast, basically, all those years ago. I'm sure we'll talk about it because we always do when he's on, but it is basically the return of the Jer Bear. It's Jeremy Sebolt. How are you, sir?
I'm groovy. How are you, sir?
Yeah, not too bad at all. What you been up to?
Been a snowy and summery week here at the weather. It's been a weird time here in the States. Yesterday we had an inch of snow. Today I have the windows open in my house. So it's 65 degrees outside. Nice, beautiful, sunny day. It's been an odd. Cobra Commander is at his normal stuff and trying to screw with the damn weather.
Well, it's a weird time in the States at the moment, isn't it? That's just, without going too deep into it, it's just, in general, it's just a weird time in the United States.
That is true. That is very true.
With next week potentially your president being indicted for colluding in a Russian plot to upset the United States. It is, but it's basically. Sorry.
Wouldn't have it any other way. It keeps us Americans on our toes with all this horse shit that's going on.
It's basically the plot from G.I. Joe circa 1985 going on at the moment.
It sometimes feels like reality shows aren't just on TV, that's reality, and that we are all living,
Well, without wanting to sound too superior about it, that's what happens when you elect a reality show star as your president.
That's a good point.
That's what's gonna happen. Plus the fact that you can't just... Do you remember the days when you're on Facebook or you're on Twitter and you'd put something up there and you'd think, I've just put something up on Twitter, and then you go back and there's like 300 notifications and everybody hates you.
No, that's... I try to just... I don't even put anything on there that's even remotely... Like, I post pictures of my daughter, and I don't think anybody's going to yell at me about how they hate her, but they could, I guess, but they're wrong.
Give it time, isn't it? I did see the daddy-daughter dance ones that you put up. I remember she was a baby. How old am I getting?
The podcast's been around longer than she's been alive.
Oh, God. I was just looking at pictures and thinking, hang on a minute, I remember when she was sort of really, really little, and now she's a little lady.
Yep. She danced with a boy at that. I have taken care of said boy.
You haven't said, has the boy been found yet?
Not yet.
No, okay.
I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just muttering. I don't want to give myself up. But no, it was cute. The little boy even came up and asked me if he could ask my daughter to dance. And I was like, well, look at you. And I totally had my dukes up. I was like, listen here, you little bastard. Go over there and get some cookies and punch. This isn't...
Stay away from my daughter.
But the funny thing is, I mean, she's little. She's 6 years old. And to have another 6-year-old kind of come up and ask, I thought it gave me a glimpse of hope in the world. I was like, hey, we might be okay here in 20 years.
Yeah, to come back to me in 20 years when you've had a lot of boys come up to you and ask if it's okay to dance with your daughter and see how okay with it you are then.
This is no joke. Stella asked me about that because Stella's age group is really into YouTube. And ex-wife Brandy was telling Stella, she was like, Daddy used to do YouTube. You should talk to him about getting you on there. And she was like, Daddy, what'd you do? How many followers did you have? Did you have a this and did you have a that? And I said, well, I talked about the toys that you play with. And she was like, ooh, like PJ Masks? And I was like, no. Like the turtles you play with. And I said, I talked about that stuff. And she was like, oh, you probably didn't have any followers or people liking you. She goes, you really need to keep up with the times, Daddy, and play with, and like talk about the new stuff. And I went,
wow.
I was like, oh, just.
It was, you see, it's hard to explain to a 6-year-old that it was a different time and people actually got thousands of followers.
Yeah.
It was, not now, but back then.
That's true. It's when it was kind of a new and funny thing to do. And I kind of even told her, I said, I've got a buddy that lives across the ocean that I could go and he would know my name and like we could hang out and drink like applesauce together. And he's like, no. How'd you do that? And I said, I met him through YouTube. She's like, do you think I can meet somebody through YouTube? And I was like, yeah, I don't really know who you're going to meet through YouTube, but Daddy needs to meet him first.
Logan Paul. Yeah, you can meet asswipes through YouTube these days. So that's why we'd have to do all our Transformers videos next to a corpse, and then we get the views. That's how it works, apparently.
That's true. Yep.
Though we are two old men just moaning about the world now, aren't we? But other than that, what have you been up to this week? Anything good? Anything interesting? Been buying anything?
I have been. Obviously, Toy Fair news came out the other day. I had to put the CPR resuscitation to my wallet and to my bank account for a couple things that I saw come out to that. It was awesome to see a bunch of real cool 80s toys coming out for that. I've been into buying on-card stuff here lately. And
yeah.
I wish I had some cool thing to say like why I started to buy stuff on card, but I have no idea why. I just started getting them. And I've been buying a bunch of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the card and the Toy Biz X-Men from the 90s, kind of based off of the 90s cartoon show.
Yes, they were good.
Been getting a bunch of those, and I've started buying a bunch of Cops and Crooks figures on the card. I've got a bunch of those loose. And I think if I was to be able to pin it down, I think I've always been in love with box art from the 80s. I think it's one of the unsaid cool things and one of the relative items behind having really cool toys and stuff. I mean, the box art on almost everything is badass. And
oh, yeah.
I've just been buying it and hanging them up on my wall kind of as like a picture. So I'm staring at my kitchen table. I've got some toys that we'll talk about here shortly, and I've got Dr. Bad Vibes and Rock Crusher just sitting there waiting to be placed on a wall somewhere, just like it's the Mona Lisa. I just need to hang them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously you get art books now with the box art in there. I've got the Transformers one. I've got a couple of Transformers ones, in fact. They haven't really, as of yet, brought out to just buy on the general market, like G.I. Joe, War Mask, or any of that. And some of that stuff is amazing. Even the Star Wars stuff that they used to, and the He-Man especially. So there was some great He-Man box art by people like Dylan Morum and things like that. They sort of really need to bring out proper art books. I mean, you do have the art of He-Man, but not specifically the box art, you know?
There are some things from the 80s that I just totally miss. I was walking around today trying to look for Marvel Legend figures because the new wave came out, and I've been getting into those. And I've first series of toys that's out right now, just the detail and what they do go into them. I've loved those, so I was out and about searching for those. And just walking around and looking at things, I was like, these shelves, even as bare as they were, nothing just pops out like it used to. You used to walk down a toy store, and you could do that in the 90s. There were still kind of figure art on boxes in the 90s. And then it's just kind of like a big bubble or a box. Something's inside of it with a clear window so you can see what you're buying. And that's it. Like the Star Wars kind of classic figures, the 6-inch versions, I mean, they're just a black and red box with a number on the side of it. And you can see the figure, which, cool. You get to do that. And I understand that you might have to do a bigger boxing or whatnot, and they're cutting prices and trying to save on everything. And that's awesome. And it's a good thing. I miss seeing that. And I also went, just on a side note, I went and walked through Target, and there was an album section in the store of new releases. And I was like, well, I'll be damned.
Yeah, it's coming out. Yep. It is coming back, his vinyl. We've got it over here as well. If you go down like Sainsbury's and Tesco's, the supermarkets here, you will find a little vinyl section. Only tiny. It's only a little, but you will find it. And they have started selling on shelves again, the supermarkets, the USB record players.
Yep.
So you can actually buy record players that you can stick in your computer, and you can... I think it's quite cool. You can make MP3s with the crackle on and things like that. You know, so it sounds like a record player through your iPod or whatever. I think that's really cool. I've got similar. I've got a for my birthday last year. My partner actually bought me a radio cassette player, but it's a USB one, and you can also put it on a memory card as well. It's got a little memory card section you can put it in, and a Bluetooth speaker capability. So it's a sort of all things in one, but it has got the cassette, and I've got a few cassettes, including some of the old Transformers book on tape ones.
Awesome.
Which is awesome. And a He-Man one, I think, somewhere as well, which is really, really cool. So it's kind of, I think, because we're all getting older, we're all nostalgizing about things like records and box art, and I think some of that stuff will come back. I mean, it is, when you buy the adult collector toys, so like the Super 7 He-Man stuff, a lot of that will have old-fashioned box art on it. So it's got the rocks exploding on behind He-Man, you know, that kind of thing. So that's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a cool thing to have. I think a lot of the toys, even when I was a kid, I think the art sold me more than what the toy, because there's a lot of toys, like the one we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Mask. And Mask, to me, the boxes ended up getting me before I ever knew about a cartoon or a comic book or anything. Really, it was, I walked down and there was this cool thing, and you see the Mask logo, and it has the semi-truck. It has the Rhino sitting there on it, and it's got a rocket shooting out of the back of it, and the exhaust pipes are cannons. And you're like, wow, what's that about? And lo and behold, you end up watching it on Cartoon Network or whatever it was on over here, and on a Saturday morning, and it was cool. But I think there was a lot of the stuff that just wasn't really known to me anyway, at least my personal opinion on it, is I would look at art and boxes, and, you know, they say the old adage of don't judge a book by its cover, but it's not right in the toys, because back in the 80s and early 90s, you could judge a toy by the cover, and you could see what it was and how cool it was, because the art kind of brought you in and sold you on it.
Absolutely. I mean, I can remember the He-Man toys. You'd look at the situation that was on the toy and think, oh, that's mysterious. What's going on there? I would spend hours looking at the back-of-the-box Transformers toy art, especially the 1985 one with Grimlock and the Dinobots on it, and Optimus Prime's fist and all that kind of weirdness. You'd spend hours studying it and looking at all the Transformers on it and thinking, oh, I wonder who he is. Oh, I wonder what that one does. Oh,
yep.
That's why when he got to the Micromasters era, he sort of he wasn't as good. I've gone on before about how shit the Transformers are on the Micromaster stuff was. It was, let's say, perfunctory, as, let's be charitable. But there you go. That was sort of the start of, we're spending too much money on this, and marketing got a bit slicker, I'm guessing, and they sort of thought, let's just use demographics to sell toys instead of just trying to get kids to want to buy toys. And it's the way it's going, and it's fine, but yeah, we're old fat, so we're going to nostalgize about old stuff, aren't we? But yeah, other than that, my week has been a bit, not boring. It's just been a normal sort of worky week. Been keeping up with the Flyers. They're playing at the moment. Eagles won the Super Bowl. Yay. Pats didn't. Yay. And Philadelphia's still there. I'm surprised. It's actually, they had a parade the other day and it's still there. Because everybody expected.
It's a big city.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's too much for them to destroy. But it did say on one of the news outlets, it's just one person stabbed and everyone's going, blimey, Philly, what's going on with you? But there you go. Oh, Philly, never change. But other than that, it's, not been an amazingly interesting week, but that's not a bad thing. We will move on to the adverts for this week. And the adverts for this week come from the Thames region. Now, sometimes I don't explain where the regions are when it's an ITV independent television advert from the 80s. Thames, as you would imagine, Jeremy, is in London.
Yes.
But London had a weird setup, whereas most TV companies in Britain on the ITV network, they were set 7 days. London had one for the weekday and one for the weekend. So Friday at 7 o'clock at night, your network would change from Thames to London Weekend Television, or LWT. But so whenever anybody says, it's Thames Television, it always means weekday. So this is a weekday on the 17th of Feb 1987. And the adverts one's for milk, so it's kind of like the American Got Milk campaign, but British. And it was a really early appearance for a certain Linford Christie, who would go on to be sort of the fastest man alive at one point. I'm guessing it's because of the milk.
Absolutely it is.
But yeah, it was just loads of people drinking milk. It was, I don't know if you got these in America, but certain marketing boards, so we had the milk marketing board, or the meat marketing board, or even the egg marketing board, would say, drink milk. There was no particular brand they'd say drink milk, just drink milk. You ever get that? I mean, obviously you got milk, but did you get anything else?
We would have certain things like anything that wasn't name brand, because there are a couple names of milk, but I'd have to go to the refrigerator and tell you what kind of milk I drink. I just drink milk.
Milk.
I'll tell you one of the funny things about here in the States when it comes to food is regionally for us, you can call a soft drink, like a Coke, for instance. Yeah. Where I live, you can ask for a Coke, and it doesn't matter if it's Pepsi or Coke. I want a Coke, and they bring you the dark soda.
Over
Not
here,
even offered.
That's weird, because over here, you go to a pub and you say, I like Coke. Then they will make a point of telling you whether it's Pepsi or Coke.
And also, this is where it gets really weird. A little bit north of me, up towards maybe halfway from me into Chicago, it's then called Pop.
Yeah, Midwestern tip Pop.
And then if you go south, from maybe half from me to Florida, you hear it called soda.
Yeah.
And then if you go out west just a little bit, towards like the Kansas, Missouri area, when they ask for a Coke, it could mean a frickin' Mountain Dew or a Sprite. They just want a carbonated drink.
If you Nicole, it definitely means Mountain Dew.
Rockstar. you will hear people ask, because when we were out there visiting and doing stuff, I'm like, no, I'll take a Pepsi.
Yeah.
Do you want a Mountain Dew? We have Mountain Dew, Sprite, and they go through the list, and then you would order. It's not like you're getting a pint of, what do you have on tap? Oh, we got this, and this. It's, I'll take a Coke. We have Pepsi products. We have Pepsi, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'll take a Pepsi.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. America, we're filled with weirdos.
Yeah, well, it's America, isn't it, mate? So
that is.
You're a country full of weirdos. Who thought that a man with that hairstyle could run the country? But moving on from milk then, we then have Danish bacon. And again, it's sort of a weird one, because Danish is a brand, but also it's just bacon. But specifically in the 80s, you had things like Danish bacon, New Zealand lamb, and they were big things, and you had to ask for those by name. Whereas these days, you just get bacon in a packet. But yeah, bacon. I mean, it's obviously it's not bacon you'd have, When we say bacon, we mean Canadian bacon. We mean back bacon, obviously. Which is always weird for Americans when they go to hotels. When we do give them back bacon, they're like, what's this? Because what you guys have as bacon is basically what we call gammon. Which is a bit different. But yeah, Canadian bacon. Lovely. I like bacon. It's just bacon, isn't it? And then you've got an advert for Rice Krispies with annoying children and annoying mascots, because that was when we really did have Snap, Crackle and Pop as mascots, and they were really annoying, and I hated them. And I still don't like Rice Krispies because of them today. They just annoy the shit out of me. Same as Tony the Tiger. I don't like him, and I don't like Frosties because I don't see the point. They're just cornflakes with sugar on. And they've got the most perfunctory marketing phrase. They're great. Right then, lads, we'll just pack up for the day. That's us done. They're great. That'll do. Oh, it's annoying. And then we got, in the 80s, we had a fascination with things that are margarine but not margarine. So spreads, what they would call spreads. So obviously you got butter, which is the best, obviously. Then you've got margarine, and there's a million forms of margarine. And then you've got things that are made with oil, so various vegetable oils or sunflower oils and that kind of rubbish. And this was one of those. It was one called Delight. And the product itself, boring, not interesting. But the guy who's doing the voiceover is a guy called Johnny Morris. Won't be famous to your ears at all, Jeremy, but to us in the UK of a certain age, he was quite a famous man. He used to do a program called Animal Magic, and he'd done it since the 60s. And it was a nature show, or as nature as it could be back then when, we didn't know as much about animals and maybe didn't respect environment as much as we did. It was, as far as it could be, an environmental show. And Johnny Morris did this shtick where he would pretend to be a zookeeper and go into cages with animals and play about with them. And as he was playing about with them, after the fact, he'd go away and he'd do little voices for the animals. Like you do when you got a cat and you're thinking, this is what the cat's saying. So the cat's saying, oh, what's in here? What am I doing? What's going on here? He would do that with a gorilla. And he'd do different voices for elephants and gorillas and stuff. It was fun. When I was a kid, I loved it. I still do it to this day. And like I say, people of a certain age still do it. But in the 80s, he basically got fired from his own show because people who get easily upset and offended said, oh, he's mistreating the animals by doing this. And so he had to stop doing it. So anyone who says, oh, Twitter, SJWs and all this crap, it's like, nah, they existed back then as well. These politically correct, can't be doing with anything that offends me slightly people, because they got an old man fired because he did voices for animals. So, but if you can go on YouTube and just put Animal Magic, you may have to sort of go through a few videos before you get to the one that you're supposed to. And I certainly won't put it anywhere else. I won't put Animal Magic on something that isn't YouTube, because you may get something. Yeah. But anyway, Johnny Morris, he was awesome. We've then got an advert for Jacob's Cream Crackers, which I don't know if you have those in the States.
That does not sound familiar to me.
It's basically like a non-salty cracker that you have with cheese over here. Like a wheat cracker. They're quite nice. They are nice, but you instead of putting your cheese on your bread, you put them on them instead, and it's like a really hard, kind of like a saltine, but not. Is the only way I can describe it. But you can put them in soup, I guess. But we usually have them with cheese. But it's an advert for Jacob's Cream Crackers. And then it's an advert for a product called Crisp and Dry. And that is basically a vegetable oil. So in the 80s, a lot of people still use beef dripping to fry chips in. So it's like, not very good for you. So they came out with various vegetable oils, and one of them was called Crisp and Dry. And it had a certain jingle where it said, and you're gonna get crisp and dry. And again, it's anyone of a certain age, you mention crisp and dry, and they'll click and clap, because that's what they did on the advert. It worked, clearly. The advert worked, because it's still with us 30 years later. But there you go. And then the ad break ends, sadly. But we will leave you with those to have a watch of those. And we will be back in about 3 or 4 minutes to talk about some mask. Bye-bye for now.
Shell will be right back after these messages.
Gonna want it. Gonna want it. Gonna want it. Gonna want it.
milk. Semi-skimmed.
Last time you bought bacon, did you make sure it was Danish?
Now you see it? Now you don't.
Or did you just take a gamble?
Take a chance. Everybody likes to gamble. Which one's the Danish? Could it be this one? Could it be that one? Round and round and round we go. Which is the Danish?
The only way to make sure you're getting Danish is to eat our words.
I suppose you know what you're doing, Jim. It's okay. I've been training them. Kellogg's Rice Krispies. It's the way. Kellogg's toast them. Get on with it. That's terrific. Beats the singing. They go snap, crackle, in the bowl and snap, crackle, pop in your head, snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispies.
Life in the town has always been better for the healthy influence of the country, which is why townsfolk enjoy the real buttery taste of a low-fat spread called Delight. Delight actually contains real buttermilk for a real buttery taste, but it has only half the fat of butter or margarine. Yes, Delights come to town, bringing the taste of the country without the fat of the land.
Is that proper farmhouse cheddar?
No, I don't think so.
What about that?
No. It's quite nice, though.
Is it? Do you think I might try a piece? I'll have 2 ounces, please.
Jacob's, the cream of cream crackers.
Hey, what's today? Thursday. I hope it's a Friday.
That's a crisp and dry day. Anything be a Friday when you're proud and crisp and dry.
Because Crisp and Dry is specially blended to shake off food, leaving it deliciously crisp and dry.
Proud and crisp and dry.
And now, back to Jam.
And we are back. I hope you enjoyed the ads as much as we did. Now, Jeremy.
Yes, sir.
Mask.
Mask, the glory that it is.
The floor is yours, mate. Why do you like Mask so much?
I'm weird on Mask. I think the toys for Mask are an awesome element of stealing from Transformers and G.I. Joe at the same time. Obviously, Masks are vehicles that turn into something. And they end up having a human element with having pilots or drivers or whatnot. And always good and bad of what's going on with good old Venom versus Mask. The toys, for me, I think are some of the most iconic of the 80s. And they were just so damn fun to play with. It's something that you could take these with your friends. If it was easy to have them, if they had some and you could take them down and have a go with them at their house. To where Transformers, if you didn't have a carrying case or if you just threw them in a bag, they could break. These things were really made to be hustled and bustled. I have quite a few of them in my collection now, and I let Stella play with them. And there's some things when I let her play with them, I just kind of watch over. With Mask, I don't care, because I know they're, A, when something breaks, it's fixable.
Yeah.
And B, you've got to run them over with a car before they just really go haywire.
They're a bit like Tonka trucks in that respect, really.
Yes. And the great thing, like I said before the ads, it's the artwork on the boxes are what really first ever drew me in. And the logo is what I remember as a kid. The logo is what drew me in because of the Rhino, of what it was doing. There was, in a sleeper cab of a semi, a missile was shooting out of it. And the stacks where the exhaust comes out were shooting lasers or guns or fire or something, whatever it was doing on the logo. But it was doing something that it was not supposed to be doing. And especially back in the 80s, to have, for lack of a better term, the balls to take a semi-truck and do anything with it to rival Optimus Prime grabbed your attention as a kid. You're like, oh, Optimus Prime isn't the only semi-truck on the block. There's Rhino.
I think we were obsessed with semi-trucks in the 80s as well, weren't we? I mean, there was one on practically every action show as well. So obviously Knight Rider, you had the Night 2000 one that was kept in. And then the A-Team always seemed to have sort of semi-trucks about. And things like BJ and the Bear, he lived in Motormaster, basically, didn't he?
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I mean, and obviously in this country you didn't really have them, so they seemed super glamorous as well. It was sort of, because we have lorries, we have articulated lorries, but we don't have anything like the big rigs. We just don't, even now we have sort of kind of like those things, but still, we don't have the massive Peterbilt ones that you see in sort of going cross country on Route 66 and things like that, you know? So yeah, right. From a British perspective, it was super glamorous to have that on there as well. It was all shiny and that, so it looked cool. So again, immediately drew your eye to it.
And one thing I've come to find in my adult age of collecting mask is popular in certain parts of the country and in the States it is, and in some parts couldn't give two poops about it. I mean, it just, nothing is going on. It seems to be more of a kind of, the heartland of America, the Bible Belt, if you will, the Midwest of the States, really took hold of the mask toys, and that's where their demographic was. To where out in California, and even like down in Florida, from what I've heard from people and heard on panels and stuff, their sales were not good. They didn't care about them.
Is that because, and obviously you'll be able to tell me more, is that because it's more of a culture of sort of automotive stuff in the Midwest, in the Bible Belt, than there maybe is on the sides of America? So obviously they're more likely to see the big trucks, and they've got things like NASCAR as well.
I would think so, because, and I've always thought that being a kid in Florida, if you're by a beach, I mean, you're going to be on the beach. But when we went and played, I can't imagine, obviously I didn't grow up near the beach, but I grew up around like community pools. So like my town had a pool that's where everybody went because nobody could afford to have one in their backyard back then. Yeah. And I would legitimately not take a sandcastle pail. I would take boats, G.I. Joe boats and figures and stuff that was watery and take it and play in the little kiddie section of this is a whole lot easier than filling up buckets and trying to pretend there's water on the ground because I sprayed the sidewalk or the street to where it looks wet. And, but I do think that there is a bigger car kind of craze in the kind of landlocked United States because we don't have those other avenues. Obviously I couldn't surf if my life depended on it, but there's probably somebody listening that's in Florida that was like, well, I'm in between surfing and going on the beach and doing this and that. I did play with it. But when I did that, I wouldn't have taken the Rhino, the big semi, to the beach. That for me personally, that just doesn't make sense. But I would have taken, anything from G.I. Joe that was a boat, or I would have taken Sea Spray because he's a boat, or whatnot.
Excellent stuff. So obviously, when did you first become aware of mask? When did it sort of come into your sphere of influence, as it were?
It was mid power of the 80s. It was I had one of the things that was great about mask at the time, and I've said this almost every podcast we've ever done. There were certain toys that were expensive. There were certain toys that were cheap, and there were some that were in the middle. So for an example, to me and my family, a Transformer of Optimus Prime, being $12 or whatever it was at the time, was expensive.
Yeah.
Because I looked next to the rack, and I can get 4 or 3 G.I. Joes for the price of one Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
So for me, G.I. Joe was a bigger influence than Transformers just because of my upbringing of what we could afford. mine was massive numbers. I could buy more G.I. Joes than I could Transformers.
Yeah.
Mask was kind of the transition for Transformers to me with the price point, because the mid-sized vehicles, which are a Hammer, Condor, the helicopter, just kind of the normal, regular-sized vehicles, if you will, they were all $5 or $6.
Yeah, so pocket money.
Yeah.
You could buy them yourself. You didn't have to ask mum and dad specifically, can I have money for this?
Exactly.
You could save your money up and say, I'm buying that.
Yeah, and it, made everybody feel good. Mom and dad gives you something for getting good grades or whatever it may be. It doesn't burn back. And you end up coming home with Piranha, for example, and it's a motorcycle with a sidecar that ends up being a submarine. I mean, how badass can you get?
Exactly.
And it's funny for me because I never got to the cartoon until after I was actually playing with the figures. And this was, for me, this was the first franchise that has ever happened with, that I had my own mind made up of what the vehicles were and who was what before I was influenced by the media or the cartoon or the comics or anything else, because I didn't know it existed.
Yeah, I think we were the same. I think possibly they brought the cartoon out as a reaction to the popularity of the toys.
And there could be, because I know there were some like comics, but they were only kind of like one-shot comics to where they only came out once, and I think they did a pretty good sale or publication, distribution, whatever that is. And it seemed like something that was going on. But even looking back now, it would be interesting to get somebody that was in the know, because Mask toys are all plastic. There are no die-cast toys.
Yeah.
Any of the chrome that you see on Mask is plastic painted with chrome paint to make it look silver. To where Optimus Prime, the G1 toys, when you saw silver, that was real metal, and that was plastic with metal. To where everything that's on a Mask toy is just plastic, and that's one of the cool things I think that are about it, because it kept the price point so low.
Yeah, I think
they could have put.
I think that's probably because Kenner were quite savvy, because obviously, for those who don't know, Kenner had previously done all the Star Wars toys. And because Star Wars had sort of ended mid-80s and there was no Star Wars on the horizon, Droids wasn't big enough to sustain a massive toy line, as it turned out. And neither was the Ewoks, so they needed something else, and that's basically where Mask came from. They wanted vehicles, they wanted pilots for those vehicles, and Transformers was big, G.I. Joe was big. Let's just combine the two, and they made a crap load of money off it.
They did, and back to my point of for me, when I got the toys, I've kind of come to talk to people, because at conventions, when you go to toy fairs, and not the toy fair, but when you go to just some normal toy fair that's at a convention, kind of like Auto Assembly was, except for everything, you end up seeing a bunch of Mask toys around at a lot of booths, but you just don't really find that one person that's like, I am all in on Mask. I have 2 firecrackers. I've got one mint in the box. I've got one loose for display. You get that for Turtles. You get that for G.I. Joe. You get that for all of the other stuff. There's just not really that big of a hardcore collector for Mask. But the funny thing about that is that I have not yet met a kid of the 80s that didn't own Condor, the green motorcycle.
Everybody
had one of those.
Everybody had Condor, everybody had a Ram Man, and everybody had that weird Star Wars vehicle that was basically 2 massive wheels that you pressed down on, and there were springs. They were on springs. Yeah. Everybody had that weird thing. Because it never appeared in a movie. It was something they invented just for toys. Everybody had one of those. Oh, and everybody had a fucking Rebel transporter as well. It's a carry case and a toy.
Yeah.
But marketing. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's true. Yeah, everybody had a condor at some point. And the best thing is, hardly anybody knows where it came from.
I was going to say, honestly, you're exactly right. I don't think people had a clue that it was a mask thing.
No.
But what an awesome concept to sit there and just go, God, wouldn't that be awesome to have a helicopter or a motorcycle that turned into a helicopter? That'd be awesome.
That's the whole thing about any masked toy, isn't it? It's like Thunderhawk. Wouldn't it be cool to have a car with gull-wing doors that could fly? Because they look like they could.
Yeah.
And I had a Thunderhawk when I was a kid.
Design.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, like I said, I had a Thunderhawk when I was a kid. I got one for my 10th birthday, I remember. And I was so happy to have that thing because it was awesome. It just looks cool. It's a Pontiac, is it? You'll know more than I do.
I'm done when it comes at it. Sure.
It's a red car. Red cars are always cool, right?
It looks fast. It's awesome.
It does, exactly. It's got like purple stickers with yellow lightning flashes on them. So, and it's got engines in the back where you'd expect engines to be. It's kind of like Knight Rider. It looks a bit like Kit. Enough to think that it was.
I would even think as a kid, I'm like, all right, motorcycle going fast. How it transforms into the helicopter, something's going to break at that. Like, that's not real safe. Like, you've either got to be sitting still or because you can't just go into it like that. But I always remember sitting in traffic. I'm like, God, it'd be awesome to be a Thunderhawk right now. We'd be home.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
Just take off and go. What was your favorite? Did you have a lot of them growing up, or were they just as scarce as could be around you?
No, I had a couple actually. Like I said, I had a Thunderhawk. I'm going down the list now and trying to remember which ones I had. I had a Thunderhawk. I had a Condor, because everybody had a Condor.
Yep.
What was the other one? I think I had the Firecracker. And I definitely had, which one was it? The Vampire.
Uh-huh.
Which is the black vehicle, wasn't it?
Yep.
And that was that Jacques Lafleur? No. I can't remember who drew that one. But I definitely had the Vampire. And, Switchblade as well. I had a Switchblade.
Switchblade's awesome.
The
funny thing, mentioning the drivers for Mask, is the one cartoon and the one franchise that, and I'm not some expert on it, but I've had a lot of the stuff and I kind of care about all these toys because I grew up with them. I didn't give two craps about the figures at all.
Oh, I like
they were placeholders. But again, if you're coming from my perspective, I thought the masks were, for half of them, were the protective gear because you're riding on a bicycle or a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the masks had special powers in the cartoons that could do other stuff, which kind of made it cool. So for me, that was one of the big of watching the cartoon was, okay, those things do have a reason. It's not just a special little helmet, but not bump the noggin when they fall off.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've got things like Spectrum, which is sort of like the Swiss Army knife of masks, because it can do anything. It fire lasers, it can give him free fall flight, it can allow him to see in infrared and ultraviolet and stuff like that. So yeah, you could do everything. Then you've got the other one that you use, the major one, Ultra Flash, which is the one he uses when he's piloting Rhino. That's the one you basically see on the mask logo. And that all that does is fire blinding blast of energy. But the one I always remember is Bruce Sato's, because he had Lifter on. Yep. He did the old, Aquaman thing, Aquaman noise. But you had things like Alex Sector, he had Jackrabbit, and that allowed him to fly, which was cool. And then Hondo got the best one because you could see his face. So he had Blaster, which was just like a half mask, and he could blast things with it, obviously. But the bad guy masks were always the best ones anyway, because you had Miles Mayhem, he had Viper, which kind of always had an Egyptian look to me. With the big massive visor that he had as well, but it always looked kind of slightly Egyptian. Zat spits corrosive poison. Sly Rax had Stiletto, which shoots armor-piercing harpoon things. You got Cliff Dagger, and he uses Torch, used quite a lot. But obviously you got other people wearing other masks. Mostly, okay, mostly fine, mostly forgettable. You got a few that aren't, because some of the later Mask characters, especially for the good guys, were a bit, shall we say, racially insensitive in today's climate. So, if for instance, I'll give you 3 for instances. One of them was Boris Bushkin, the Tsar. He had a mask called Comrade, or Comrade, and it fired red energy-based stars. So stuff like, I was kind of like Jubilee's power in the X-Men, so it would confuse opponents. So it's like a light show.
Yeah.
That's Boris Bushkin. Not too bad. Alright, fair enough. Then you got Nevada Rushmore, nicknamed Chief. Ugh. He had a mask called Totem, which fires small totem poles. Oh man, what? Obviously in the 80s, nobody thought twice about this shit, but you look at it now and you think, oh no, why would you do that? The best one was Ali Bombay, Ali Lightning Bombay. His mask was called Vortex, which creates controlled whirlwinds. But, yeah, no, Ali Bombay. I mean, obviously these days it'd be called Ali Mumbai. Oh, there's a political joke for you. But, yeah, so it looked like all 80s cartoons, it has its moments where, because a lot of people, I remember last time we sort of did a podcast on this, people were like, oh my god, it's the worst thing ever. And thinking, yeah, you watch Transformers, don't you? You've seen all the Car Bomber stuff, right? Car Bomber. I mean, for God's sake. But yeah, the pilots did matter in the cartoon and the masks mattered. But I guess a lot of people, like you, only really gave a toss about the actual vehicles.
I did on the first of just getting into it. It really, for me, was because I didn't know anything about it. I was just like, oh, cool. Well, this little guy isn't the figure at that time that I had him was, well, you're not G.I. Joe size. What in the hell am I supposed to do with you? You don't fit into anything I have except for on these vehicles, and I don't know what your name is. You look cool, but I will call you Tim.
Because obviously they were smaller.
I will call you Bob.
Bob the driver.
Yeah.
Obviously they were smaller than the G.I. Joe figures, weren't they?
They were, yes.
So you couldn't...
And one thing about the masked vehicles is, with the figures, a lot of them were harder than hell to get in and out of them. Once they were in, a lot of them, that's it. They were in. You didn't take them out to play with them because you might not get them back in the car.
Especially if you took them to school or anything like that.
Yes.
Because they did have like seat belts and stuff, but they were sort of like rubber bands basically that just went across the figures. They didn't really hold them in that well, I seem to remember.
No, because unless you had microscopic fingers, you couldn't do anything about it, because you can't. You think of Thunderhawk, for example. He has a seat belt, but you have to get your fingers in over the figure and into the middle console, if you will, to where the gearbox shifter would be, to put a little piece of plastic into a little knob to where it would hold the seat belt. Really, they just got in the way, but they made them just accurate for a car to have that, which is cool. But playability wise, I yanked half of them out because I was like getting tired of dealing with it. I'm just like, man, I just want my figure to go in here, and so I can go vroom vroom. I don't really need to click the safety belt, you know?
Yeah.
The one thing I did notice about one cool thing about masks that not a lot of people really do know is, to my recollection, it's the only toy line to never have a vehicle repaint.
Yeah, all the vehicles were different, weren't they? You never had.
Even later on in life, they were all retooled, redone vehicles. There was, in today's society, there would be 15 different colored Condors. There would be 32 different shapes and styles of Thunderhawk. And there would be one coming out every time. To where Mask and Kenner decided just to make one vehicle part. Now, they did do some the same figures, but they got a different mask and they got a different jumpsuit. So it was totally different from what they looked like.
Yeah, because obviously... sorry.
the funny thing about those figures is half of them were really cool. They would come, now there were some figures that would come in 2-packs, like Bruce and Brad Turner would come together. You know, they would come because you could lose the pieces so easily that they would literally come with, you know, you could have Hondo and Matt Tracker without buying the vehicle, but you could have those. And then later, towards the end of the run, towards the later 80s, you would end up having the Mask Adventure pack to where it would be Brad Turner, but he's on the Coastal Patrol.
Yeah.
So he has a totally different helmet, but has like a life raft with some torpedoes and an engine and a anchor and stuff like that. And actually, some of those were pretty cool. Miles Mayhem had one who had like a jet pack on his back with rocket firing. They didn't really do that, but you had to pretend a whole lot. But had like missiles on his arms to shoot with flamethrowers and all of that. Just pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said about the retools and the fact that you never got the same vehicle, you had two distinct eras of Mask as well, because you had the first season era, I guess you could call it, where it was Mask versus Venom, and it was sort of like a Transformers G.I. Joe setup, and they were both in the bases at the end of the show, and they both came out, had a fight, went back to their bases, blah-de-da, general 80s cartoon. And then somewhere between the first and the second season, somebody said, you know what would be cool if there were racing teams?
Yep.
And it became less about Venom being this evil organisation, and it became like Pole Position, almost. So they were still doing evil things, but it became more like wacky races, where they just wanted to, rather than take over. Well, to be fair, we'll go into that in a second. To be fair, Venom never actually wanted to take over the world. That was never the plan.
No.
Oddly enough. And that makes them different than most evil 80s organisations. Rather than sort of just do evil stuff, they just wanted to win races by nefarious means, and if they could make a buck on the side, then all well and good, but hey ho, doesn't matter. It was the second series Mask is weird to me. It's a weird show.
It's, you could tell they had a little bit of power coming behind them, and they had to get something done. And it was, they took literally one storyline and ran it for 5 different ways, 5 episodes. It was the same story told over and over again, just in a different way.
Like most 80s cartoons.
And one thing I thought weird about, true, and I do think one thing that's weird about the cartoons is that when the cartoons came out, there's a lot of the toys that never showed up in the cartoons.
Yeah.
It wasn't, like for Transformers had the original normal guys that were on the Ark on the first episode, and then all of a sudden, later on down the line, I guess you call it season 2, I guess, that's when, like Inferno and all of those guys just show up. They just so happen to
we were here all the long time,
just sitting back with their feet propped up.
Yep.
Yeah. Found you. We got dumped off at the ship back here a while back, but for Mask, it was, they had all of these cool vehicles that they could have done, but they still kept to the first and original grouping that they will. Which even for oh gosh, what's it called? What was the shit? A Hurricane, I think.
Oh, all right, okay.
Is that like the old hot roddy looking car?
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah. Well, that had Hondo in it, in the figures, who was an African American guy. Hondo did not ever ride in the Hurricane, ever. No. He always rode in that big truck. Not in the Firecracker, I think is what it was called. He was in the truck, never was in the Hurricane. The Hurricane, I think, was in the titles, but I don't think was ever in the actual cartoon until later on, like season 2 or whatever it may have been.
Because
it
was always Buddy Hawks, wasn't it? Who
Yep.
To drive it rather than Hondo, but it was in the actual toy. You actually got Hondo with it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which is weird. Hondo was a great character as well. I liked Hondo.
He was awesome. Yep.
He was a teacher, wasn't he?
Yes.
Along with Alex Sector, who was like a professor, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he, I think Alex Sector owned a pet store as well, an exotic pet store. He's a vet, of all things.
Yeah.
Weird.
And they all come to meet. One of the coolest things of the 80s that's never been released, and it always, and I've seen somebody customize it, and I wish I could find it, and I wish I knew where it was easily enough to send it to you. But they've actually, to scale, built the control room where the claw comes down with all their masks.
Oh, cool.
And you can sit them in their chair, and they have it turns coming down and has the lights. And I always thought that was cool as could be, to have just this one big claw come down with little bitty claws that had everybody's masks. Like, they didn't take it home with them. It was just at Boulder Hill sitting in the vault to where nobody could use it.
They did a very clever thing as well, because they said, rather than just have every character in every episode, for each mission, let's get the computer to pick who would be best suited to that mission, so we can target toys at people incrementally and sort of not have people lost in the crowd, sort of.
Yep.
So I always thought that was really clever, because obviously the bad guys, there weren't that many bad guys anyway. So you could always have pretty much every bad guy on there. Whereas the good guys, because they're good guys, there's a million of them. Because that's always the way, isn't it? So yeah, I always thought that was really cool. But again, just to touch on Venom, obviously Miles Mayhem was cool. I like Miles Mayhem. And the story is that obviously he invented the masks. They were all his idea. But he went bad. He went bad, man. Like we sort of touched on earlier on, the best thing about Venom is that they weren't interested in taking over the world. They just wanted to make loads of money.
Yep.
And that's rare for an 80s evil guy organization, because obviously you had Cobra wanted to take over the world, you had the Decepticons wanted to take over the universe, but Miles Mayhem et al. Just wanted to make buttloads of money and retire to Costa Rica or something.
A lot of bank robberies happened in masks.
They were working for criminal organizations who wanted to take over the world, but they were just stealing a diamond so they could get paid.
I remember there was one of the comics that they had for it. They actually tried to rob Fort Knox, which I don't live too far from Fort Knox. So when I was a kid, I was like, hey, I want to go there just to see it. Like, masks tried to rob them. Let's go.
Then
we drove past it, and it's just a big building with a fence around it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's really big. It's just a storehouse. It's a warehouse.
Yep.
Do they still hold all the gold in America like it used to on the 80s telly, or is that just sort of a myth now?
Nobody knows for sure. There have been people that have been recently, like Fort Knox is almost on the level of Area 51 to Americans. It's kind of that conspiracy theory. A lot of movies, documentaries done on it.
Yeah.
And for the last that I heard of a report, like around the maybe 2005 era, is that all of the gold was still there.
Right.
So, but who knows? It could be next door to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. Something tells me no. Something tells me it's a nice, convenient. It's like Loch Ness Monster, isn't it? It's nice and convenient and touristy. Tourists like it.
And it's funny because it's legitimately on a highway. It's next to a highway, not an interstate where you can go 75 miles an hour, but you can go 50 and you drive right past it. And it's like in a blink of an eye. Oh, well, there's Fort. Well, it's gone. It's you come up on this field and you're like, that's a lot of barbed wire for building. Oh, McDonald's. It's kind of like you can literally get gas a mile away from Fort Knox. It's weird. And I've playing in the band. We've done a lot of weddings to where we play at Fort Knox. So like I've been on the base of Fort Knox, and you drive right by it. They get out, they look, they have a dog go through your car, and make sure you're okay. and then you go on to the base. And you drive past the little secret airport that they have there, and with all the tanks and stuff like that, that's just sitting there hidden. But
so basically, you're going to get kidnapped by Cobra soon, so they can pump you for information.
Yeah, I've been there. I don't know what they get from me, but next time on the podcast, when I get arrested, and the black helicopters are probably on their way to my house right now to talk to me about this. But
yeah, exactly what you've been saying on that podcast. Not much. So what are your favourite mask toys then? Which are the ones that you saw? Because I remember years ago when you did, obviously when you did YouTube videos, that you had a massive sort of chubby on for Gator. That seems to be your favourite. Is that still your favourite one?
Gator was always my favorite because of the playability, which is, for anybody that doesn't know me, playability is big for me with a toy, because you can do two things with it. It's a Jeep. You can play on the dirt, and then you shoot it out, and it's also a cool little boat. It is one of the more fun mask toys because of playability that there is. However, on coming back to looking at this stuff when I'm older, I've started to look in the engineering department of what some of these people went through to make a toy, and I think one of the best toys that was in the mask era was Raven. Raven's another little sports car, cool little thing. It's got some like pinstriping on it, and it's got the opposite of Tomahawk, to where it folds up, or like toward the sky. The doors fold outwards like wings, to where they'd be towards the ground, and then the front, if you hit a button, the whole front end, and here in America where the engine is on most cars, it turns around, and it's the tires pop up and they fold. You hit a button in the back, and these big jet engines take off, and it's just cool. It mostly reminds me of kind of like a cool Transformer. It's something you can just get to real quick, and it has a motion to it. Instead of just hitting one button, like Thunderhawk, you hit one button and everything. The doors pop open, the jets out of the back come up, and away it goes. This has at least got a button and a couple of things you have to do.
Yeah, I'm sure I had it. I think you pressed a button and the whole front of the car sort of flipped round, didn't it?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And it was like a seaplane and a submarine. It kind of reminded me of James Bond's Lotus, when it it could go underwater, couldn't it? And then be a submarine and that kind of. So I always kind of liked it. I think, didn't the wheels at the front flip over and become guns or something like that?
You know, I still to this day don't know what they were. I always used them because they only come out at a 90-degree angle. And if you flip the car around, it can only shoot either left or right, up and down. It's really not a forward shooting thing. Like a jet airplane, you have the target in front of you, not to the left or to the right. I always played like they were spokes, to where if they were driving, he would pull out the spikes on his tires and pop a wheel or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But they're probably guns.
Yeah, I always, like you, I always seem to think they're a bit ineffectual as guns, but they must be guns. I can't think of anything else they would be. I always like the name of the driver as well, because it was Calhoun Burns. And it just sounded like the most Southern American name you could come up with. What's his name? Where's he from? He's from Carolina, so what's he called? Calhoun. There you go, that'll do. I don't know where he's from. Sorry, Carolinians. But it always sounded like sort of Rhett Butler. That kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense, or am I just being horrifically racist towards Americans?
Yes.
Good. see how you like it.
That's right.
Exactly. But yeah, that was a great one. Which other ones did you like? Which other ones did you sort of look at and think, I really like that one? Or which one have you bought sort of now after the fact, thinking, yeah, I'm really glad I bought this?
Manta is pretty badass. It's a Venom vehicle. It's a purple sports car, does the same thing, kind of goes into an airplane attacking kind of a thing. It's cool. Has a button that I never understood this as a kid, because I thought it was like an ejection seat to like get rid of somebody. Like, I guess if she was on a date, she could just eject the person who was in the passenger side.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I looked at it, and it's got guns and stuff on it to where it would be like a self-driven, just like by yourself, could take off, fly, and have that as another vehicle, which I thought was pretty cool. That was kind of an adult moment I found with it.
Plus it was purple as well.
Which is always awesome.
And it had the thing I like that a few mass vehicles do, where the underside of the car flips out to become wings.
Yes.
There's a few mass
hidden.
vehicles that did that. Yeah, it's hidden, and it's clever, and it kind of makes sense that it would do that.
Yeah.
As much as mass could ever make sense.
Yeah. If it really were a logical thing, that would be the way to do it. Not the other way around.
I mean, let's face it, if it was real, it'd fall out of the sky like a fucking stone. But, you know, it's fantasy, lads. It doesn't need to be real.
That is true. Other toys that I thought were just really cool as an adult, I think that are just cool. The stiletto, which is probably one of the hardest and most expensive toys to get, is pretty badass. Is that a Ferrari, or I think it's a Lamborghini. I think it's sideswipe.
Countach. It's a Lamborghini Countach.
There you go. But the cool thing about that is that it has Mask went into this thing to where, well, Gloria Baker was the driver of that, and Gloria Baker was always on the cartoons, but never had a release until maybe the third or fourth go of having the toys out.
Yeah.
Because she was a girl, and they didn't think boys would buy girls' toy with a toy with a girl in it.
Which is bullshit. I mean, but practically every guy from the 80s I know, there's very few of them who've ever said, I didn't want Gloria Baker, I didn't want an RC, I didn't want Galadriel. They all wanted these toys.
Yeah, we all had She-Ra, we all had Teela, we all played with a Princess Leia. It wasn't a thing. But to have that go in and then go into kind of the stiletto and that whole group of, I think they were called split-second vehicles, to where instead of one vehicle, it looked like a motorcycle turned into a helicopter, they kind of broke apart and became two vehicles because they had, I always called them their ghost or spirit. It was the same figure, except it was clear plastic, like it was a hologram.
Yeah.
And the idea is that real Gloria Baker could be in one, and she splits herself into a second to be able to fly the second. And there's a ton of toys that come out that way. Some of them are good. Some of them are shit as can be shit. They're terrible. But this is one of the good ones. And to be real honest, I've never transformed it or got it into its plane or anything else. I just label it as Lamborghini because it is awesome how it looks just sitting on a shelf.
Does look nice. But I'm looking at a picture of it now where it is transformed, and I kind of dig it. It's kind of like a drone, almost.
It is cool. It's how you do it. You pop off the sides of the Lamborghini. That middle helicopter comes out. You just put the two sides of the car together.
Yeah.
The back spoiler and the front spoiler become a wing, and away it goes. Which it's pretty cool to have that.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm digging it. I've seen a few of these before, the ones that split into two. I think that's a really good idea. It's just a shame it came out when it did at sort of the arse end of the line. Because I think it's like Action Masters. It's a great idea that people hated at the time, I'm guessing, but actually works really well.
Well, and this was the saving grace of the whole line. They were trying just to make something. And to be fair, there are things that come out in this line. I think there's one called Dynamo, who's like a beach buggy kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And were Frog Eyed Sprites, was that a car in England?
Possibly.
It could have been like a German thing, but I know it's foreign to us. I know it's not a U.S. thing, but it looks kind of like one of those, and it splits up, and it's a turd. There's something called a detonator, who is a split second. That's kind of like a VW Beetle.
Yes, I think Few did a. I think Thew did a review on
it. It's purple with green front.
That's it. Yeah.
And it turns into a kind of a motorcycle dragon-looking thing. And and then it's like a hovercraft that's around.
Yeah, it's weird. I like it.
It looks great, but again, it looks just for me for the stiletto. I never transform detonator. I own it. It stays in the VW bug mode because it looks badass that way.
Yeah, it does.
But then you end up going to what is this thing called? It's the worst one of all of them. Is it? I think it's Victory or Vandal. It's something that starts with a V, but it looks like a bulldozer, but a cheap bulldozer, like one that you would use just to move like small scoops of wood or gravel in the country.
Like an earth mover. I think they call those really, don't they? Like an earth mover.
Yeah, and it is so cheesy. It's terrible. It has like this little jet. It's not good. It comes into a little doom buggy looking thingamabobber that's also shit. But
I'm looking at it now. I want it. That looks awesome.
I was gonna say you're gonna love it because it has that nostalgia that you like. It's got that coolness to it that you like. But I've played it. Having it in hand as a toy, you're like, what in the hell are you supposed to do with this? It's just not a...
I think it looks fucking awesome. Sorry, mate. I really think it looks great, and I would love it. Oh, that's awesome. What are you talking about? I don't understand you sometimes. I just don't. It's like look, everybody knows me. I do love a bit of naffness. And it is naff. Don't get me wrong. It's naff as fuck. But, yeah. I don't know why. I just kind of dig it. But then I like the vampire, and the vampire's naff, isn't it, as well? So, you know.
But see, I like the vampire. So, to each their own of what they love. It's always something.
Oh, yeah.
But that split second, they got away from what Mask was of turning one into two. And maybe they just ran out of ideas because they never did repaints, and they were just like, let's see what your imagination comes up with, because some of the things that they did, Dynamo especially, looks like something that you would have been at a pub and you just drew on a napkin because you were drunk.
I kind of like that though. I kind of like that idea that anything goes almost. It's like, just let your imagination run free. We'll make it. We'll see what happens. It's something that just basically doesn't happen anymore. You don't get mad crazy vehicles or mad crazy toys anymore. It's all very focus group. It's all very marketing. We've done our research and we've done this, and this is what boys like and this is what girls like and this is what happens, and everything's too perfectly targeted these days. Whereas back then it's sort of, let's try this. Let's see if this works. And like Vandal could never be made today. There's just no way, because it's too insane, it's too mad, it's too crazy. And half the toys that were released in the 80s are like that. They're, like Supernaturals or Visionaries, for God's sake. Visionaries would never have come out these days, because who's it trying to please? It's not trying to please anyone in particular. It's just trying to please all sorts of people and muscle into the He-Man market and this and that. And I like the fact that some of these Mask toys are just mental, crazy, insane. It's kind of cool.
And one thing Mask was pretty good about doing is they would have bigger vehicles that, they had Boulder Hill that was a playset, but even playability as a kid with Boulder Hill was, okay, so there's this big rock the gas station over there. All right, so if I'm Venom, I went there once and I got my ass kicked. I'm going to stay away from that gas station. Let me go to the next one.
Yeah.
Boulder Hill, as cool as it is and as fun as it is to goof around with, never really hit home for me as being a Mask kind of a playset, to where they had things that were like Outlaw and Rhino and everything else that were cool. Now, however, they were all semi-trucks, but they were bases that you could have kind of a stationary base or a mobile base. And again, they were all semis. But
yeah. they're big, massive vehicles. It makes sense for them to be semi-trucks, I guess.
Yeah.
These days, obviously, they'd have the trailer and everything, wouldn't they? But, it was the 80s. It was the era of the semi-truck at the end of the day. People loved seeing those, especially, like I say, in Britain, where we don't have them because our roads aren't big enough. Basically, in America, it makes sense because your roads are like thousands of miles long, whereas ours, we have the M1 and the M4, and yeah, they're long roads, but they're not thousands of miles long, so those sort of things don't make sense over here. So we always sort of do it impossibly glamorous. We will do this sometime. We'll get together at some point. We will do an episode on perceptions of what the other side was like in the 80s, because obviously I was talking to a friend of mine during the time of the Super Bowl, actually. They're quite young. They were born in the 90s. And I was telling them about in the 80s when they tried to bring American football over here the first time, and it just seemed impossibly glamorous. And I'm sure in America it wasn't glamorous at all. But over here, it was that we had football played in dirty, run-down, horrible stadiums. And then American football, they were all shiny and glitzy, and they'd been cleaned. And, so it just seemed like a glamorous thing. And one of those things would have been the vehicles. So things like Convoy, the film Convoy, Smokey and the Bandit, and Knight Rider, and all this kind of thing. All these vehicles that you just didn't get. Because obviously we had dirty old Ford Capris or a clapped out Ford Cortina rather than a Trans Am shiny Pontiac with a scanner on the front. You just couldn't have made Knight Rider over here. You just couldn't have done it. But yeah, it's so like sort of Mask and that lot and Transformers. One of the attractions certainly for the UK was that you got to see all these glamorous American vehicles and ooh, shiny. But yeah, so Mask is cool. I like Mask a lot.
Mask is. It does have the one turd, just like every other 80s cartoon of T-Bob, but
it's not T-Bob though, is it? It's not T-Bob. I was going to mention this. T-Bob's fine. I have no problem with T-Bob. It's Scott.
Scott's
T-Bob,
too, but
T-Bob is the voice of reason. Scott Tracker's like, yeah, my dad told me. I'm a 9-year-old boy. My dad told me not to go into this potentially really dangerous situation. I'm going to do it anyway. And T-Bob's like, why would you do that? Your dad said no. Plus, really dangerous. Oh, fuck that shit. I'm going in anyway. It's like, Scott's a little shit. He's a spoiled, and he never gets punished. Ever. He always gets away with it.
Scott's mom was?
Probably fucked off because Scott was such a fucking nightmare. Plus, I've got this other theory as well. I think, Matt Tracker did a Michael Jackson with Scott's mum. I think she's just some woman he knew. He didn't want to be with a woman at all. Couldn't be bothered with a relationship. So just, cause he's like a billionaire, he just paid this woman off to have this baby and it's like paid her to go away. And she's like, well, I'm kind of glad because that kid's a nightmare anyway. So, I think that's what happened, personally. I think Scott's mum, either that or she went away on vacation. She was on, what is that? How does Matt Shrek say it about Man Returns? Extended vacation. I reckon that's what probably happened. What do you think?
That the newer Mask like comic books stuff, it's weird.
I've not read it. I do remember at the time some people sort of not liking the fact that they changed Matt Tracker's race. Like that makes any shit of a difference to Mask.
Yeah, that's definitely not my
cares?
hiccup on it. It's my hiccup on it is that it's just shitty writing.
Yeah.
You could make him an alien as far as I'm concerned. It's just not good.
Well, that's a shame. Because obviously, yeah, I mean, it can't be that difficult to write Mask, really, can it?
No,
it's not. I guess why is it shitty writing? Are they trying to make it too serious? Are they trying to make it too sort of realistic, or what's the problem with it?
you can tell in my eyes they are trying too hard to make it good,
right?
And it's coming off as not good. And
right.
all you need to, they're trying to reinvent the wheel, but Mask is what Mask is. And if you're going to write a comic book about it and you're going to, go away from what the tradition of it is, then reboot the whole damn thing. Kind of don't have a helicopter that turns into a jet. Don't have a Jeep that turns into a boat. Make your own stuff up. Make whatever you want and just redo the whole thing, but don't try to shove the stuff that we have known and loved for all these years and then try to make it into something that it's not. Because it just doesn't work.
Like what? Like what are they doing with it?
They're not bank robbers anymore. They're actual, let's take over and be more vicious than what they were.
Okay.
But they kept the same, and they kept some of the same personalities. So you've got the guys that are just dumbasses, that are written dumbasses, but they're trying to do like these genius James Bond villain type robberies of stuff. Let's get away with that. Go have them knock off an ATM. Go rob a convenience store and get away in your big truck, and then let Mask come get you.
No, that doesn't make. No, that's not. That's rubbish. That's like Blofeld saying, "Ha ha! Let's rob this bank." Where is it going to be? All the banks? No, it's just this one bank. Why? Is it a distraction? No, I just want to rob a bank. What? No, that's rubbish. And no, they need to be doing over the top, stupid James Bond style stuff because that's what they're trying to do. It's like Cobra, isn't it? When they try to make Cobra really serious, it never works because Cobra is not. I mean,
it doesn't work.
You can make it a bit harder edged because it was quite hard edged in the comics anyway, but you can't get away from the fact that Cobra vehicles are inherently ridiculous and have everybody be really scared of Cobra in that way. Or I don't know. They did an interesting thing with the coil where they made the coil and Serpentor like a religious thing. I was like that. I thought that was cool, but they never went too far with it, Oh no, I don't like the idea of Switchblade just knocking over a convenience store. That sounds lame.
And the bad thing is that they're going off of that crossover with Transformers and everything else that IDW has, that just big cornucopia of everything 80s just to try to sell books. And a lot of the writing for Mask individual has kind of stemmed off of that. So it's real spotty. So, and that's one thing I don't like about modern comics. And they had it back in 80s comics even, to where they would, even in the notes in the bubbles, they'd talk about something in the panel, and then all of a sudden it says, go see Captain America number 12. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But for this, they don't even give you that. It's just, how dare you not read everything Mask that we had put out, and damn you if you haven't read it. Now you're just confused about what's going on.
Yeah, I have noticed that with IDW. They are just sort of throwing everything at us and seeing what sticks at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's not good. It's not going to work. And look, I have no idea what their numbers are, but I have the feeling that if they're doing that, the numbers aren't as good as they used to be. I know they've lost a lot of Transformers breeders over the last few years.
And it's just Venom's they're a Black Ops kind of group. That's what they are in the comics. And then Matt Tracker is, he's untested as a leader. So for us, Matt Tracker was the leader.
Yeah.
He had that lead role type of thing, to where he's kind of a goofball trying to figure it out. Is the one that's fine if you're going to do that, but let's write a story about Matt Tracker not knowing shit. But they just throw him in, and then all of a sudden, a book later, Matt Tracker's only been doing this for 6 days.
I'm sick.
Learning on the job.
I'm really sick of comics doing that. I'm really, really sick of it. And just because if you do that, invariably the comic's going to end within about 6-7 months anyway.
Yep.
Stop it. Have it established, and then you can go back and do flashback stories. Don't bother. I don't want to know about the fucking origin. I want Mask as it was. They didn't do that in Transformers. Or they didn't tell you about the start of the war. You know? They just said, here's the war. You're in it now. There you go. It's annoying. It's annoying. I wish they wouldn't do it because, especially in comics, because slow burners, they're not good. People who want to read Mask aren't interested in seeing the early days of Mask. They're interested in seeing Mask. You're not going to pick up new readers or people who didn't want to read about Mask. It's too niche. It's like Transformers. They didn't, thankfully, start off with, you know, the start of the Transformers when they started doing Transformers comics. Because if they had, they wouldn't have it, you know, 15, 16 years later. Yeah, don't do that, comic companies. Don't. It's silly. People want to people want to be involved in the action straight away. They don't. Origin stories don't work these days. I don't think so, anyway.
I agree.
Anyway, but let's not end on a down.
I agree.
Let's not end on a down. If you could have a real Mask vehicle, somebody said to you, we're going to make you a vehicle, Jeremy, and it's going to be a Mask vehicle, so a real world Mask vehicle, which vehicle would you want?
Woo.
Yeah, I know.
I think it would have to be. I think it'd have to be the Condor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for as long as I've played with that toy, and I've always, as a kid, wondered just if that would be my $1 billion thing of being able to do that. I think that would be cool to have a real fast croc rocket.
Yeah.
Go bike, and then it turn into a helicopter and go.
Well, why not? So you
any other color would not do.
No, it needs to be neon green. Has to be. You know, you've got to have it stupidly neon green. Absolutely, totally. Yeah, any other colour will not do. Me. I don't know, Thunderhawk. I always liked the Thunderhawk.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know why. It's because it's probably the first Mask toy I ever had. Plus, like I said, it's red, it's shiny. It's got purple stickers with yellow lightning flashes on it. And it's that whole thing of gull-wing doors look like they should be plain doors, you know? They look like they should be plain wings. You know? It's got engines out the back. You can drop a bomb on people if you want to. It just looks cool. So yeah, I think definitely Thunderhawk would be the one that I would want. Because it just looks great.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with either one.
Absolutely 80s as well. There's no more 80s car than that car.
Truth.
And it looks a bit like
That is
Kit.
true.
A little bit.
True. You could paint it like Kit, and then you could have it do that. You didn't have best of both worlds.
No, it needs to be red because red goes faster. Do you
That's
not know
true.
this?
I did not.
Well, you do now. Red cars go faster.
Always learn something here on this wonderful podcast. Always learn something.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us again then, Jer.
No, as always, it's always a pleasure to come and be able to talk goofiness with you. It's always fun. Thank you for having me.
I always say it feels a bit weird thanking you for coming on because technically it is still your podcast. Because your idea.
This baby's been passed on long and long ago. This is yours, and you're doing a great job running it. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you, sir. Is there any sort of links or anything you'd like to sort of promote while you're here?
Not promotions. If you ever want to come, and if you listen to this and you think I'm just full of shit on Mask stuff, come tell me about it. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on that a lot. I like talking to people on there. Just don't bring your dumbass arguments of politics and all that other stuff. But if you want to talk about cars that look cool that turn into jets, I'm in on that.
Or X-Men toys.
I can talk about X-Men toys.
Talk
about anything as long as it's 80s nostalgia.
Good place to actually find Jeremy is on Facebook. It is 80s Toy Collectors. I do share a lot of Back to the 80s links on there, so they do get a lot of UK television. So they do get a lot of UK game shows.
I've even had, there's a lot of I created that thing just to have friends of mine that were collectors around my area just to kind of be a part of, to see what's going on. And it took off into being a little something to where people can go. They love all that UK stuff you pop on. They're like, what in the hell is this stuff?
Oh, that's kind of why I like to do it, because obviously when you're here, we can talk about US and UK, but I can never say equivocally, this is what it was like in the US, because I was nowhere near the US as a kid in the 80s.
Sure.
What I do know is silly comedies with Clive Dunn playing Grandad. That's what I know. And I always think Americans are looking at that and think, what the fuck is this? The UK was weird in the 80s, man. And all the weird...
That's why it's cool.
Well, exactly. It's cultural, swapping, isn't it? It's a swapping of culture and the melting pot. We should all watch each other's stuff. But, anyway, this week, on Back to the 80s on the Facebooks, we're, promoting Doctor Who stuff. So you're going to get some old classic Doctor Who stuff on the 80s toy collectors. But do join that group.
Yes.
As for me, if you want to join me on Twitter, it's at Cymru Nerd Cave. If you want to join me on Facebook, it's Glenn Jakeman. Please do send me a message before you try and add me. Otherwise, I will sadly delete the request. If you want to find the actual podcast on Facebook, it's facebook.com/BTTE pod. And then on the 80s Twitter, it's BTTE pod as well. And you can also find us on the freeforums.net, which is back to the 80s.freeforums.net. It's not posting there so much these days, so it could be that I do take those links down. But, there's plenty of places you can find us if you would like to. And we are on bte.libsyn.com. We're on Stitcher, I think. We're going to try and get on SoundCloud at some point as well, and a few other places. But, Jeremy, it's been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully we can do it again soon and talk about some other obscure 80s toy.
Absolutely. We're going to leave you this week with Depeche Mode and Everything Counts, because it's a cool 80s song. And also a close down from the Tyne Tees region. So for people who don't know, that's the northeast of England. So Newcastle, that sort of area. And that's from 1984. Jeremy, say bye-bye to the good people.
Goodbye, good people.
Bye-bye, everybody. We will see you next week. Bye-bye for now.
Well, once again, we come to the end of the day's transmission, and we thank you for your company. Do hope you've enjoyed our programmes today and this evening. Well, that's it. From everyone here at Tyne Tees, we wish you a pleasant and a peaceful good night. From me, as always, a very special good night to you. Keep smiling till I see you again. I leave you now, as always, with that Tyne Tees clock. And the time is just coming up to 8 minutes to 1 o'clock. Good night.